Hey, I'm Blair Best, and tonight on The Story, we're heading to commercial buildings like this one that sit vacant and destroyed across Portland, and they're causing major issues for surrounding businesses. We take you inside. It's our big story tonight.
These are generally a scourge on the neighborhood. They usually become quite the target and the beacon of bad behavior.
On Wednesday, Portland City Councilors talked to foreclosing on 8 properties sitting empty and in debt, like this overgrown lot off Southeast Cesar Chavez Boulevard.
It has really attracted the population of people that live on the streets.
Pastor David Brink works at the neighboring church.
We have a constant problem with having to tell people that camping is not allowed here because we have a school and we have children here and we want to keep it a safe space.
At one point, the lot was to be turned into an apartment complex.
Yeah, there were 2 old Portland houses.
City records show the building permits have expired. As of August, the property owner, Hawthorne Greenseed Apartments, owes the city more than $63,000 in liens. Records show the Oregon Secretary of State dissolved the property owner's business license earlier this year.
By the time a property gets to this stage, it often is a nuisance in the neighborhood. The goal is always to avoid foreclosure and find other ways to clean up these properties, knowing that foreclosure is the last resort.
It kind of feels like this is in a permanent loop and doesn't really feel like there's a solution. We cannot keep anything on our property without it being stolen.
And inside this building off St. Helens Road is filled with trash, broken glass, and covered in graffiti. Those who work in the area say it's been like this for at least 5 years.
I've seen all kinds of crazy things.
Sean McGrath works at Bridge City Steel.
Man, what don't I see?
Right next door to this neglected warehouse in Northwest Portland.
I've seen everything from stolen cars in the building right next door, homeless people in here, kids like to come here and tag a lot.
City records show from mid-October of last year to late July, fire crews were called to the property 3 times. Police have also been called 3 times during that same period for crime and disorder. When police respond, nothing changes long-term, Sean says.
When they do show up, it'll be good for about a week, and then you'll come back a week later and there'll be some other kind of drama going on here.
The property owner is Christensen Oil. Records show it filed for bankruptcy in 2016.
The majority of the time when we find ourselves in this type of foreclosure situation, we're talking about properties that have largely been abandoned by either family members of deceased or of businesses who went under. And they're often in areas where the surrounding neighbors are asked to put up with something, I think, a little too long.
It's very frustrating. I mean, look, I work right next door, and this is not eye-appeasing, whatsoever, and it does cause a big safety issue.
As of August, the owner owes the city more than $19,000 in liens.
I think it's a good idea. Foreclose it, clean it up. I don't know what they're going to do with it, and make something productive out of it.
So today's discussion at Council on foreclosing 8 properties like the ones you just saw was just a first reading. So basically a first discussion. Councilors will have a second reading and vote on whether to move forward with foreclosure sometime next week. Now, when it comes to the empty lot in Southeast by the church, Council referred that to the mayor for guidance on how to move forward. If the city does vote to foreclose on any of the properties, the owner can still get the property back by paying off the debt within 90 days of the foreclosure sale date. If they don't, it will be auctioned off to the highest bidder by the city. Now, we're told that usually happens a few months after council approves the foreclosure. But what do you think about the abandoned properties around town and the process to get them taken care of? Maybe there's one in your neighborhood. Let us know. Email the story at kgw.com or call and leave us a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Well, turning now to the latest on Portland's ICE facility along the south waterfront. Government contracts show the feds are in the middle of a $4 million project to upgrade security there. The work began in 2022 and includes stronger perimeter fencing, new gates, reinforced security glass, and more floodlighting. In June, federal records show the government paid $220,000 to board up the facility's windows. You may remember last week, the city of Portland issued a land use violation for the ICE building. One of the violations was for boarding up the windows. The city said ICE did not get proper permits or approval. Also worth noting, earlier this month, ICE asked for more security improvements due to the ongoing protests outside the building. Today, our crew stopped by where a few people were gathered. Things usually escalate once the sun goes down, so daytime there is relatively uneventful. But on the heels of a deadly shooting at a similar ICE office in Dallas, Texas this morning, people on opposing sides of the political spectrum here at home are pointing fingers of blame for the violence.
Do we have threats against ICE? Yes. Are they happening in Portland? Yes. Are local officials doing anything about it to stop those threats or push back on the people who are threatening ICE agents? No, they're not.
The violence that we have been seeing from them, the way they brutally arrest people and tear people from their families, I'm not seeing enough government officials doing anything about that. So if they're so very concerned about violence, then why are they not pointing at the perpetrators of that violence?
Meanwhile, it's a tactic we have not seen in the Portland area yet, but ICE is using the airwaves to try and recruit law enforcement officers in the Seattle area to join its ranks. They're offering a stunning $15,000 signing bonus, but some critics, like the former sheriff of Washington's most populated county, are not holding back in response. Madison Wade explains.
Join ICE and help us catch the worst of the worst.
Former King County Sheriff John Urquhart says when he saw this ad, he almost spit out his coffee. His first reaction was sarcasm.
I'm not working. Where do I sign up? You know, they've got a good signing bonus, up to $50,000. That's not bad.
Urquhart says ICE's pitch could make staffing shortages worse at the local level.
The sheriff's office, my old department, is down about 100 officers. Seattle police are trying to hire 300, 400, 500 officers in the next few years. They're down as well. Almost any department in the area is not at full staffing. Last thing we need is more competition.
And he's pushing back on the ad's message that federal immigration agents are the best way to fight crime.
If you want to fight crime, become a community police officer. Serve in your community. Fight crime. Help people.
ICE is reporting strong interest, though. Over 150,000 applications submitted and roughly 18,000 job offers extended since President Trump began his second term. Washington state law bans local law enforcement from enforcing federal immigration laws unless tied to a criminal case. And SPD has previously said it only asks about immigration status when it's directly tied to a criminal case, like human trafficking.
The worst thing that could happen to policing is for the immigrant community, and it doesn't matter whether they're documented or undocumented, is being afraid to contact the police because they think they're going to get deported.
In a statement this week, Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell wrote, "The recent efforts by Immigration and Customs Enforcement targeting Seattle police officers in their recruiting campaign using misstatements of both law and fact is disappointing and insulting to the oath that officers took when they raised their hands and swore to uphold the Constitution and serve and protect Seattle communities." He went on saying, "Public safety is built by community and sustained through trust and cooperation with people who live, work, and visit Seattle. The Seattle Police Department is committed to evidence-based policing and real partnerships, not political theater that puts politics ahead of safety."
I want to say it like it is. Don't take Tylenol. Don't take Tylenol. There's no downside. Don't take it. You'll be uncomfortable. It won't be as easy, maybe, but don't take it. If you're pregnant, don't take Tylenol. And don't give it to the...
Okay, you have no doubt seen the headlines this week about the president and his administration making the case that using Tylenol during pregnancy is linked to increased autism risk. It's an announcement that has inflamed some in the medical community who argue there is no proven connection between Tylenol use and intellectual disabilities.
This is fear-mongering about autism. Tylenol is one of the only and one of the safest options for pain control in pregnancy, and that is an essential aspect of necessary health care. Pain and fever in pregnancy needs to be treated with Tylenol, and not treating pain and fever can lead to complications for the mother and for the baby.
study after study has actually shown that there's no causal link with Tylenol and pregnancy and autism.
The makers of Tylenol issued a statement saying more than a decade of research has not found credible evidence linking Tylenol to autism. President Trump and his administration mentioned several studies to back their claim, the largest of which was posted in the Journal of the American Medical Association last year. Here's a closer look at what researchers found.
The study was done in Sweden and looked at children born in 1995 through 2019 for a total of nearly 2.5 million children. In the study, they controlled for many factors, including the mother's pre-existing conditions, including migraines, rheumatoid arthritis, chronic pain, and infection, 1 year before pregnancy through delivery. This was also a prospective study, meaning they asked moms at their first appointment and every appointment until delivery if they'd taken any Tylenol. This avoids possible recall bias, meaning asking those with a diagnosis if they remember if they took medication while they were pregnant. What they found initially is a 0.09% higher risk of autism until they controlled for siblings. This means they looked at families who had one child with a neurodivergent disability but didn't take Tylenol, and another when they did take Tylenol. In those families, there is likely a genetic component. When sibling control was accounted for, there was no link or association between Tylenol or acetaminophen use in pregnancy and an increased risk of autism.
Meanwhile, here at home, the new president of OHSU says the university will soon be starting research investigating causes of autism.
Our research center was just the recipient of a large grant from the NIH to investigate the causes of autism, but also what works best in helping families get their kids to better outcomes in autism. And this is part of a large package of grants that the Secretary of Health has offered academic health centers like OHSU across the country. So what I can tell you is that we have the scientists to help answer these questions, and I think we'll be able to help Oregonians across the state.
Now, he also told us that the university is working with the governor's office and West Coast partners to review evidence related to the president's claim. But for now, OHSU's clinical guidance regarding Tylenol use during pregnancy remains unchanged.
Recommendation still stands that a moderate dose of acetaminophen is safe. But again, these are questions that are always evolving with the science. And so this is a clear signal to us to look into that question more. And again, we're really excited about that new grant from the NIH that's really looking into what leads to the best outcomes for children with autism after that diagnosis.
Well, coming up next on the story, we're stepping away from politics and heading to the Arctic, where a concerning trend continued this year in regards to Arctic sea ice. Chief Meteorologist Matt Zaffino brings us the data and the science when the story returns. Well, Chief Meteorologist Matt Safino joins us now. Matt, okay, on Monday, we talked about the end of summer and the beginning of fall.
Right.
But you have another bit of insight for us related to the changing seasons and Arctic sea ice. Okay, what's going on?
Yep, that's right, Blair. So every summer, of course, we see the sea ice over the Arctic Ocean contract and get smaller and smaller as the Arctic warms. Now, as the northern hemisphere is beginning to cool off, that sea ice will begin to grow again. So around this time of the year, we see what is called the Arctic sea ice minimum, meaning it's melted back, it's reached its smallest area, and it's going to start to grow back again as things begin to cool off. Now, this orange line is the 1981 to 2010 30-year average of where the sea ice goes. If you average all those years, it usually covers everywhere inside that orange line. This is where it's shrunk on down to this year. You can see there's a lot more open water inside that 1981 to 2010 average. So it was another year where we saw the sea ice melt away a lot more than it has according to the satellite record, which goes back 47 years. So it's a pretty robust record that we have. This is all measured by satellite sensors, and it's pretty good data for sure. Now, this could change because there's still some ice floating around up there. If we get some good storms, it can make it go a little bit smaller. It happened on, I believe, the 11th of September, the minimum. Now it's beginning to grow back again, which is also a little bit earlier than the average too. So we're seeing it shrink back more, and we're seeing it shrink back to its minimum earlier in the summer, which are all not great trends if you're a fan of Arctic sea ice, right? Let's look at this another way. This is a line graph also showing the minimum Arctic sea ice extent. This year is, let's see, which year is this year? 2025, the blue line right here, right? You can see it's not the lowest. That was this dashed line back in 2012, but it's in the middle of the pack, and it's in the top 10 of the lowest Arctic sea ice extents that we've ever seen. All of the 19 lowest have happened in the last 19 years. Now, again, that's another concerning trend, but there is a caveat to that because we haven't really seen, like this year, get a lot lower than 19 years ago. So there's been a flattening here, and that's the subject of much debate and research in the Arctic ice community. So to sum it up, this is what it looks like, to bullet point it for you, Blair. This year, 10th smallest end of summer sea ice extent that we have on record. And again, the records go back 47 years, so it is a pretty robust record. The 19 smallest have all happened in the last 19 years, again, which is really, points to the warming that we're seeing in the Arctic, and all the Arctic scientists believe that the Arctic will warm at a higher rate than the rest of the planet, and this would help to confirm that. But we haven't seen it, again, this year be a lot lower than 19 years ago, and that is the subject of a lot of debate and research that still needs to happen.
And Matt, I'm curious, are we seeing similar ice trends in the Antarctic?
Yeah, it's a great question, Blair. The Antarctic, the dynamics there are different because remember, the Antarctic is a continent, so the sea ice rings the continent. The Arctic is an ocean, so that sea ice covers the ocean. But we are beginning to see similar trends in the Antarctic. Of course, the seasons are reversed in the southern hemisphere, so they reached their third smallest Antarctic sea ice extent back in March. The third, it can get confusing when you're switching hemispheres and seasons,
I totally
right?
Get it.
Okay, so third smallest maximum, which just happened now because they're just entering the Antarctic winter. So they would get their greatest sea ice extent. Third smallest on record is likely. It may get a little bit, it may change a little bit. It usually happens late September or early October. But back in March, when they reached the minimum at the end of the Antarctic summer, second lowest on record there. So again, we haven't seen the trends. This is all, the trends in the Antarctic are more recent, say in the last 5-8 years or so. Not as long as the trends that we've seen in the Arctic, but we are beginning to see it. And this has big impacts on weather because the more open ocean you have, even though it's cold water, it still releases heat to the atmosphere, generates more storms. It changes the ocean current. So again, big impacts on the planet.
Okay, Matt, interesting stuff. Thanks so much.
You bet.
Well, coming up next on the story, it's a murder mystery that stretches back nearly 80 years. The victim is still not identified all these decades later, but that could soon change thanks to new age technology. We'll explain when the story returns. What is believed to be one of Oregon's oldest cold cases is getting renewed attention tonight. It's a mystery nearly 80 years in the making. The state medical examiner's office exhumed the remains of a woman known only as Oak Grove Jane Doe, killed in a grisly murder back in 1946. The case drew national attention at the time, but the victim's identity has remained unknown. Alma McCarty has the story.
One of the oldest in the West, Oregon City's Mountain View Cemetery serves as the final resting place for many, with most grave sites marked clearly with a name.
Every person deserves the right to identification.
Among the headstones, one that reads, Unknown Woman, 1946.
Despite this case being nearly 80 years old, this is still a case that we would work to get identified.
Now, the state's forensic anthropologist, Haley Collard-Stalder, and her team are one step closer to finding out who she was, after connecting this gravesite to a woman only known as Oak Grove Jane Doe.
This case has some particularly violent and kind of heinous facets associated with it.
It's a nearly 80-year-old unsolved homicide after partial remains of a woman were found in a burlap sack in the Willamette River back in April 1946. Additional remains were found near Willamette Falls and the McLaughlin Bridge later that year. Clackamas County investigators determined the victim was a middle-aged white woman between 30 and 50 years old, petite in stature.
Being able to, I guess, restore at least the dignity of the decedent's name is something that is really, really valuable, not only for the decedent herself, but also for her family who may be wondering what happened to her.
The evidence, including Jane Doe's remains, she explains went missing from law enforcement custody in the 50s, with no record of where they ended up. That is until someone with the medical examiner's office used findagrave.com to figure out the remains had been buried.
She found this woman's remains, and then she was able to back check all of the mortuary records to match with the case file that we had. And she was like, yeah, this is our unknown woman.
Remains now exhumed will be tested with technology not available decades ago.
What we would like to do is get this case sent out for forensic genetic genealogy.
And although identification could take years, Collard-Stalder says what some may see as a disturbance of peace has a purpose.
It's something that we continue to work toward for everybody. Every person has the right to their name.
According to the state's forensic anthropologist, there are around 150 unidentified individuals in Oregon. Well, turning now to a crime alert. Police around the metro area are warning people to keep an eye out for credit card skimmers, like this one pulled off a pay terminal. The devices, which can steal your card details with just one swipe, have turned up in at least 7 local stores in just the past few days. Stores in Portland, Tigard, and Hillsborough. And those are just the instances that police know about.
And so how much more prevalent this is difficult for us to say, but we have definitely seen an increase in the last couple of days all throughout the metro area in different jurisdictions. So it is something that is definitely happening right now.
Early Sunday morning, a customer discovered a skimmer at a 7-Eleven store on 99W and Southwest Park Street, likely installed Saturday night. Surveillance video shows someone also on Saturday. Police say managers at 2 different Dollar Tree stores on 99W found card skimmers. One store on Southwest Durham Road and another on Southwest Hall Boulevard. Hillsborough police say card skimmers were found at 3 Dollar Tree stores in Washington County. And on Tuesday, Portland police responded to the Dollar Tree at Mall 205 after someone found a card skimmer there. So if you recently used a credit card at any of those stores, pay extra attention to credit card activity and report anything unusual. To spot a skimmer, police say to look at card readers for signs of tampering, including looseness, unusual bulkiness, or a broken safety seal. If you can, use tap to pay or a mobile wallet instead of swiping your card. Well, that's the end of our show, folks. Thanks so much for watching. The good stuff is coming your way next. And don't forget, everyone has a story to tell. If you ever miss an episode of The Story at 6:30, we re-air it at 8:30 and 10:30 on our TV app, KGW+, which you can get for free right now on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. In the meantime, have a great Wednesday night. I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.